Two people live in the same city. They shop at the same grocery stores. They see the same inflation headlines, the same interest rate news, the same market updates. But this year, one person watched their net worth go up by $18,000. The other watched their monthly cost go up by $320. Same economy, very different outcome. If your life feels like the economy keeps getting more expensive while other people somehow keep getting richer, this video is for you. Because most people think the economy affects everyone the same way. It doesn't. The same inflation rate, the same interest rates, the same market cycle, and the same recession scare can push one person forward while trapping someone else in place. And once you see why, you'll stop blaming yourself for being behind in a game that was never paying everyone the same way to begin with. Here's the hidden truth. The economy doesn't reward effort first. It rewards position first. Not position in the social sense, position in the financial sense. What do you already own? What are you exposed to? Which side of the economy are you standing on when prices move? That's what decides whether the same economic event feels like progress or pressure. I call this the ownership gap. The ownership gap is the distance between people who benefit when prices rise and people who only pay when prices rise. That one gap explains more financial frustration than most budgeting advice ever will. Think about inflation. When inflation hits 4%, most people hear the same number, but they do not live the same experience. If you rent, inflation can mean your landlord raises rent by $150, $250, maybe $400 a month. Your groceries cost more. Insurance goes up. Repairs cost more. Eating out costs more. Your paycheck might not move for another 12 months. But if you own assets, inflation can work very differently. A homeowner with a fixed mortgage might watch rent in the area rise while their payment stays mostly stable. Someone holding broad market index funds might see companies raise prices, protect margins, and keep sending long-term returns back to shareholders. A business owner might be able to pass some of those higher costs to customers. Same inflation headline. Different personal math. One person experiences inflation as a bill. Another experiences it as a boost, and that's the first rule. Rule 1. The economy rewards exposure before it rewards discipline. This is where people get confused. They think the most disciplined person should always move ahead first. But in modern economies, exposure often matters before discipline gets a chance to compound. If you own assets that rise with inflation, price increases can lift you. If you only consume and work for wages, the same price increases usually hit you first and relief arrives later, if it arrives at all. That doesn't mean discipline doesn't matter. It matters massively. But discipline without exposure often feels like running on a treadmill. You can be responsible. You can budget. You can skip unnecessary spending and still feel like the finish line keeps moving. Because it is. If housing in your area rises 8% and your wages rise 3%, you did not just lose 5%. You lost ground in the part of the economy that builds long-term leverage. If the market rebounds 12% and you have nothing invested, that recovery happened around you, not for you. That's why two people can both work hard, both be careful, both do the right things, and still end the year in completely different places. Not because one is smarter, because one had better exposure. If you've never thought about money this way, subscribe. Because this channel is about the hidden systems that decide who moves forward before most people even realize the game changed. Now let's go deeper, because exposure alone is not enough. The second reason the same economy creates different outcomes is that assets and wages move on different clocks. And that brings us to Rule 2. Rule 2: wages negotiate, but assets compound. This is one of the most important money truths most people never fully absorb. Your paycheck usually changes slowly, maybe once a year, maybe after a review cycle, maybe after switching jobs, maybe after months of waiting, stress, and negotiation. Assets don't move like that. Stocks can reprice in weeks. Real estate can jump over a few quarters. Businesses can expand margins while workers are still waiting for raises. That difference in speed matters more than people think. Imagine two people. One earns $70,000 a year and gets a 4% raise. That's an extra $2,800 before tax. The other has $150,000 invested, and the market returns 10%. That's $15,000. No interview, no performance review, no manager approval, no awkward compensation conversation. Now, obviously, not every year looks like that. Markets go down too. But that's exactly the point. People with assets are connected to a system that can move fast in both directions. People without assets are usually connected to a system that moves slowly upward and quickly downward. Wages climb like stairs. Expenses often jump like elevators. Assets, over time, can compound like escalators. That timing gap is brutal. It means even when workers win, they often win late. Rent goes up now, insurance goes up now, groceries go up now, but the raise comes later. Maybe that delay forces people into survival decisions. They cut investing first, they stop building reserves, they carry balances, they postpone maintenance, they become more fragile while trying to stay responsible. Meanwhile, the person with assets gets pulled in the opposite direction. Rising asset values create more cushion. More cushion creates more optionality. More optionality makes it easier to invest again during downturns. And that leads to Rule 3. Rule 3: the same economy creates opposite loops. This is where wealth really separates. For people with ownership, the economy often creates a reinforcing loop. Assets rise, net worth grows, stress goes down, cash flow feels easier. They can keep buying, keep holding, or buy more during pullbacks. That creates even more exposure to the next recovery. That is an ownership loop. But for people without enough ownership, the same economy can create the reverse. Costs rise, margin disappears, stress goes up, investing stops, emergency savings get used. Small setbacks turn into expensive setbacks. And the next opportunity passes by because survival comes first. That is a pressure loop. Same economy, opposite loop. This is why one person sees a recession as discounted assets. Another sees it as danger. One person sees high interest rates and earns more on cash while waiting. Another sees car payments, credit card balances, and borrowing costs become more painful. One person sees inflation and thinks, my assets may keep up. Another sees inflation and thinks, my life just got smaller. This is why hard work alone feels less powerful than it used to. Because the economy is no longer just paying labor. It is constantly repricing ownership. And if you are mostly on the consumer side of the economy, you feel that repricing as pressure. If you are increasingly on the ownership side, you start feeling that same repricing as progress. So, what do you actually do with this? First, stop reading every economic headline like it affects everyone equally. It doesn't. Ask a better question. When this number moves, who gets paid first? When inflation rises, who gets paid first? When rates fall, who gets paid first? When the market rebounds, who gets paid first? When housing gets more expensive, who gets paid first? That question alone will teach you more than 100 generic money tips. Second, stop measuring financial progress only by income. Income matters. Of course, it matters. But income is not the full scoreboard anymore. You need a second scoreboard. How much of your life is exposed to ownership? How much of your monthly effort is being converted into something that can rise without you working another hour? Even small exposure matters. A few $100s a month consistently invested matters. A paid down asset matters. A lower fixed cost life that creates investing room matters. A skill that can turn into equity or leverage matters. Because the goal is not to become rich overnight. The goal is to stop standing on the wrong side of the economy forever. And that brings us back to the two people from the beginning. Same city, same inflation, same market headlines, but one person keeps feeling every economic change as a cost. The other slowly starts feeling the same economy as lift. That difference is not luck, and it is not just discipline. It is where they are standing. The economy does not pay everyone equally. It pays owners first, workers second, and consumers last. Once you understand that, money stops feeling random. And once money stops feeling random, you can finally start moving on purpose instead of just surviving on schedule.